Eight The ministers warned that if Putin continues on this path, the long-term damage to the Russian economy will be significant, compromising Russia's future prosperity as it continues its aggressive actions abroad. Moscow has taken drastic steps to control its economy amid the ongoing crises. The government has imposed export bans on petrol and sugar to ensure there's enough supply at home. They've also set up strict capital controls to stop money from flowing out of the country and to prevent the ruble from plummeting. Despite these measures, billions of US dollars are still reportedly being moved out of Russia. For many Russians, these economic tactics from the Kremlin might feel like a flashback. Capital controls, export bans, and massive funding for the war industry are reminiscent of Soviet-era strategies. While these measures might seem to boost the economy temporarily, they're actually signs of a regression back to old Soviet practices. These actions include extensive market controls, high public spending, funding by taking over private assets, and shifting the economy's focus solely to the war industry. Ignoring the social and economic well-being of the people, history has shown that such approaches don't work well in the long run. The economy may overheat in the short term due to heavy investments in the war sector and limited access to technology, which will likely block improvements in productivity and stagnate the private sector. This could lead to even higher inflation and put more financial pressure on Russian families to make up for future shortfalls. Between 2022 and 2023, Russia's export revenues dropped by about a third, according to data from the Russian Customs Service. In response, further measures are being ramped up. In June, the EU rolled out its 14th sanction package, which includes steps aimed at liquefying natural gas and Russia's shadow fleet that's been transporting sanctioned Russian oil globally. Meanwhile, at the G7 summit, leaders advanced efforts to prevent China from helping Russia skirt these sanctions. They also agreed to provide a $15 billion loan to Ukraine, which will be paid back using future revenues from Russia's frozen central bank assets. These are crucial moves, but more actions are necessary to tighten the grip on Russia and bolster Ukraine. The West needs to quickly and effectively implement the G7's agreement on loans for Ukraine and consider even broader solutions that comply with international and EU laws. It's crucial that assets stay frozen and sanctions remain enforced until Russia compensates for the damages it has caused. Sanctions should be intensified, especially in key areas like energy, finance, and technology. It's also important to enhance the enforcement of existing sanctions and close any gaps that allow goods to reach the Russian war effort, either directly or indirectly. Particularly the cap on Russian crude oil prices, set at $60 per barrel, needs stricter enforcement as trades are still occurring above this limit. Additionally, sanctions should also be applied to Belarus, and increased pressure is needed on other key players in East Asia and the Middle East to facilitate the bypassing of sanctions. The article raises another compelling question about the current state of the Russian economy, especially in light of recent restrictions on the export of some of its most crucial commodities. Historically, Russia has heavily relied on the export of oil, possessing vast reserves and ranking among the top oil exporters globally. Yet this year, Russia started imposing a 6-month ban on all gasoline products, a move that extended for an additional 2 months in September and October. This decision is particularly puzzling if one assumes that the Russian economy is thriving. Russia has over 40 mega refineries, massive installations dedicated to processing crude oil in the more valuable products like gasoline, diesel, and kerosene, which are then sold worldwide. The initial justification for the export ban was routine maintenance at these refineries and ensuring sufficient fuel supply for agricultural needs during the harvest season. However, these explanations fall short. The harvest doesn't span 8 months, and maintenance typically concludes within a few weeks, not months. This discrepancy suggests deeper issues within the Russian oil industry. Further evidence of turmoil is seen in Ukraine's strategic shift in its counterattacks, targeting these very refineries with drone strikes. Approximately 14 facilities have been affected, with some shutting down temporarily and others for prolonged periods. These strikes disrupt significant segments of the production chain, leading to substantial operational halts. This disruption underscores the severe challenges Russia is facing in its oil sector, compelling it to withhold gasoline exports to meet domestic demands instead. Moreover, on May 3, 2024, TASS, the official Russian news agency, reported another significant measure: a ban on the export of cane or beet sugar and chemically pure sucrose until August 31, 2024. This move, declared via the Russian government's Telegram channel, aims to stabilize the domestic food market. The necessity for such a ban indicates that the economic troubles extend beyond the oil and gas sectors. Sanctions have broad repercussions, affecting various industries and diminishing Russia's ability to import goods at previous levels. Historically a net exporter of sugar, Russia must now redirect these sources to substitute for scarce imports, thereby sacrificing international sales and further straining its economy. The article further sheds light on the escalating inflation issues in Russia, exacerbated by dwindling revenues. In June 2023, Russia's inflation was at a manageable 3.3%, aligning with the central bank's ideal target of 4%. However, by July 2023, inflation crept up to 4.3%, surpassing the target, and over the past year, it has surged dramatically. The latest figures from June 2024 report an inflation rate of 8.6%, which is more than double the intended target, indicating a rapidly deteriorating economic situation. This troubling inflation trend is further illustrated by the movement in producer prices, also known as factory gate prices, which are a strong indicator of future consumer price movements. In June 2023, producer prices were stagnant, showing no increase. Yet by July, they had risen to 4.1% and continued to spike sharply over the following months, reaching a peak of 29.9% in November. Since then, they have consistently remained in double digits, with the most recent data from June 2024 showing a 14% increase. This sharp rise in producer prices suggests that inflation is likely to accelerate further as these increased costs trickle down to consumer goods, pushing retail prices higher and driving inflation up even more. In response to the inflation crisis, the Russian central bank has been aggressively raising interest rates. 12 months ago, in July 2023, the official rate was an interest of 7.5%. Since then, it has been increased multiple times and currently stands at 18%. When compared to other G20 economies, only Turkey and Argentina have higher interest rates, both of which are grappling with their own economic crises. Other countries with double-digit interest rates like Mexico and Brazil have rates significantly lower at 11% and 10.5% respectively. Despite these sharp interest rate hikes aimed at curbing inflation, they have not been effective, With producer prices continuing to rise well above the general inflation level, there's a looming possibility that interest rates in Russia could exceed 20% in the near future. This scenario highlights the severe challenges facing Russia's economic stability, as high interest rates typically slow economic growth by making borrowing more expensive for businesses and consumers, further complicating the economic outlook. The article finally discusses the significant shift in Russia's economic structure towards what it referred to as Sovietization, a move toward a wartime economy. This shift is characterized by the Kremlin directly financing companies that support the war effort. These companies are increasingly isolated from global markets as they are funded by the state and focus solely on producing war necessities. This approach is leading to a significant drain on Russia's reserves. The economic consequences of this shift are profound. As a result of the invasion of Ukraine, the Russian workforce has significantly diminished. About 1.2 million people were lost from the workforce, 500,000 fled the country immediately following the invasion, and another 700,000 left during the mobilization in August and September 2022. The conflict has also resulted in approximately 450,000 Russian soldiers either killed or injured, further reducing the workforce by up to around 1.7 million people. This drastic reduction in workforce has led to a surge in wages as state-sponsored companies scramble to fill positions. These companies must offer higher salaries to attract workers, which in turn forces other employers to increase wages to retain their staff. This situation is compounded by a significant drop in migration to Russia. Given the current circumstances, including potential conscription, fewer migrants are choosing to move to Russia for economic opportunities. Reports suggest that many migrants currently in Russia are considering leaving due to the unstable conditions. Russia's ability to attract and retain a workforce is further hindered by its declining population, attributed to a low birth rate and high death rate, which have been exacerbated by the war. The lack of incoming migrant workers worsens this situation, presenting a substantial challenge for the Russian economy. Despite reports suggesting an increase in GDP, giving the impression that Russia's economy might be performing well, the article highlights that this growth is unsustainable in the long run. The economic model, heavily reliant on state sponsorship and disconnected from global economic systems, coupled with a shrinking workforce and increased isolation, poses severe long-term risks for Russia's economic stability. The focus on immediate wartime needs at the expense of sustainable economic practices and global integration suggests that while GDP figures may temporarily reflect growth, the underlying economic health of the country is in jeopardy. Thanks for sticking around till the end of today's video. We hope you found it insightful. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Economy Obsession for more details on Russia's economic crisis.